Every family has a story, every story has a past, but some stories don't disappear with time. They linger, shaped by war, survival, and the unforgiving frontier. Today, we begin with the story of Kels Power Nickell, a Kentucky farm boy turned U.S. cavalry soldier whose service in the Indian Wars placed him at the center of one of the most pivotal campaigns of the American West. Hello y'all, my name is Jake, and welcome to Echoes of Us. In this first part, we're stepping into the summer of 1876, following Kels as he marches north with General George Crook toward a violent confrontation along Rosebud Creek, a battle that would echo just days before Little Bighorn. Kels Power Nickell was born on April 8, 1855 to John Desha Nickell and Priscilla Jane Jones on their family farm near the Licking River in Morgan County, Kentucky. Like many frontier families of the time, little is recorded about his early years. He likely spent his childhood helping on the farm, learning the routines and responsibilities of rural life. In 1873, Kels married Anne Brown. Together, they had one son, John Desha Nickell. The marriage, however, was short-lived and ended in divorce in 1877. 2 years earlier, in 1875, Kels enlisted in the U.S. Cavalry and was assigned to a detachment under General George C. Crook, stationed in the Wyoming Territory. His enlistment placed him directly in the path of one of the most consequential conflicts of the Indian Wars. In June of 1876, the U.S. Army renewed its campaign against the Lakota Sioux and their Cheyenne allies. The plan was a three-pronged offensive into the Bighorn and Powder River country, designed to locate native forces and compel them onto reservations. Colonel John Gibbon led the western column, General Alfred Terry, accompanied by Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer, led the eastern column, and General George C. Crook commanded the southern column. Crook's force numbered 993 men, Kels Nickell among them. They departed Fort Fetterman and marched north toward the Tongue River, arriving on June 8th, where they established camp to await the arrival of their native allies. On June 9th, Crazy Horse and a small force of warriors launched a long-distance probing attack on Crook's camp, wounding 2 soldiers before withdrawing. Reinforcements arrived on June 14th, 261 Crow and Shoshone warriors, longtime enemies of the Lakota and Cheyenne. They were eager for battle. They joined Crook's command as scouts and allies. On the morning of June 16th, Crook left his wagons and supplies behind and resumed his march north toward the headwaters of Rosebud Creek, hoping to surprise a nearby Lakota and Cheyenne village. Unknown to Crook, the village was actually located west of his position along the Ash Creek. The element of surprise was compromised when the Crow and Shoshone scouts encountered a large buffalo herd and began hunting, alerting nearby native forces. Meanwhile, the Lakota and Cheyenne had already set out on the warpath, nearly 1,000 warriors strong, to find Crook. At 8:30 a.m., June 17th, the two forces collided. The battle began when Lakota and Cheyenne warriors opened fire on the Crow and Shoshone scouts, who were holding the high ground. Though Crook's native allies fought fiercely, they were heavily outnumbered and were forced to give ground. Their resistance, however, bought Crook valuable time to deploy his troops. What followed was a 6-hour running battle across nearly 3 miles of broken terrain. Combat broke into scattered groups, with charges and countercharges launched by both sides. The soldiers could repel the attacks, but they could not decisively engage or destroy the enemy. The heaviest casualties were suffered by 6 cavalry companies under Lieutenant Colonel William Royal, Crook's second-in-command. Royal pursued a large group of warriors away from the main camp and soon found himself trapped along a ridgeline under attack from multiple directions. It was only when the Crow and Shoshone warriors charged into the fight that Royal was able to break free. As Royal's men mounted their horses and made a desperate dash back toward Crook's position, the Crow and Shoshone launched one final charge, holding off the Lakota and Cheyenne long enough to prevent Royal's command from being annihilated. When Captain Anson Mills' company arrived to reinforce Crook's position, the Lakota and Cheyenne withdrew from the field. Crook claimed victory by virtue of holding the battlefield, but with mounting casualties and dwindling supplies, he too soon withdrew. He would remain inactive for 7 weeks, awaiting reinforcements. His Crow and Shoshone allies, however, returned to their homes shortly after the battle. Crook, along with Kels Nickell, would take no part in the Battle of the Little Bighorn, which occurred just 8 days later. In the aftermath of Custer's defeat, Kels and one other soldier were ordered to survey the battlefield before the fallen were buried, a grim task that exposed them to the full extent of the destruction. It remains unclear whether Kels participated in additional engagements during his service. He remained stationed at Fort Laramie until his discharge in 1880. Kels Nickell had survived war on the plains, but his most dangerous battles still lay ahead. Join us next week as we follow Kels into the Iron Mountain Range of Wyoming, where a bitter feud would ignite, and his life would be forever changed. Thank you all for stopping by. Until next time.